Today is Tuesday. It is Yudalet Cheshvan Tavshin Ayin Tes. We are in Teres Menachem, Sefer Mamar Vayedaber Gimel, in the Mamar of Shavuos, the second day of Shavuos Tavshin Gimel. Vayedaber Anochi. Vayedaber Anochi, and we are on page Kuf Ayin Beis at Ois Hey. The Rebbe explained in Ois Daled, in chapter 4, that Torah relates to speech. That the innovation, the unique aspect that was given to us, that Hashem gave to us at Matan Torah, was the idea of Dibur HaTorah. Because Dibur HaTorah symbolizes the highest levels, as the Rebbe explained earlier concerning the soul and the idea of speech in man, that the ability to articulate letters into meaningful words comes from the very essence of the soul. That's why the person is called Medaber. That's why he's referred to as Medaber. Because Medaber, the one who speaks, the one who communicates, represents the very highest aspect of the expression of the soul. And therefore, as we transpose that onto Torah, when we talk about Dibur HaTorah as opposed to understanding Torah, that represents Torah at the very highest level, meaning to say the ability of Torah to transform physicality permanently into Kedusha, into holiness. It's a representation of the highest level of Torah. That was the crux of what the Rebbe said in Ois Daled. And now we move into Ois Hey, chapter 5. So that's all fine and well, says the Rebbe. Just to focus on the last point we discussed in yesterday's Shiur, of course, there was the ability to speak words of Torah before the Torah was given, but the power vested, the Kedusha power, the godly power vested in Dibur HaTorah only came about through Matan Torah. That's the point. It's like a mitzvah. On Sukkot, it's a mitzvah to shake the esrog in the lulav, and we have to make a bracha over it. If I shake it in the middle of the week, it's nothing. It's not a mitzvah. It's the same act, but it's devoid of the kedusha. It's devoid of the holiness, meaning to say it's devoid of the divine energy and the divine power that it represents if it's not done in the time of the mitzvah. Similarly, Torah, Dibur HaTorah, became meaningful and powerful spiritually once Torah was given. Before that, it didn't have that power. That was the last point we discussed at the end of yesterday's Shiur. Now the Rebbe goes and asks a question. Page Kuf Ayin Beis Ois Hey, chapter 5. Omnam, however, Adayin Tzarech Lahavin, we still need to understand. Mahu hatam shebirur v'zichuch hagashmi tzarech liis al yedei hamshachas haTorah davke. What is the reason that the refinement of the physical must be specifically through drawing down the Torah, meaning to say from above to below? That's the idea of hamshachas ha'er shalei lefi erech hanivroim davke. The idea of refining the physical is by drawing into the framework of creation something which is totally beyond creation. Shalei lefi erech, not just higher, but immeasurably higher. Meaning to say that creation and creatures, created beings, in their own right, have no connection to this power, to this force. It's something which is bestowed upon them from above. The Rebbe says it would seem that refinement should be in a manner from below to above, meaning to say that the created being himself works with himself or makes an effort on his own and brings about that refinement. Here it seems that the refinement takes place through a force which is bestowed or even imposed upon creatures and created beings. Why not b'derech milmata l'mayla, from below to above, which would seem the more logical way of doing that? Hainu, what does that mean, milmata l'mayla, from below to above? It would seem that this bitter, this process of refinement, should come about through a divine light and energy which has some association to created beings. Why specifically from a force which is beyond the created? Now, if we learned a bit of Tanya or a bit of Chassidus, we know that the whole point is avodas ha'adam, man's service of Hashem, meaning to say man's effort. Here it seems to imply that the birur comes through a force which is naturally not related to created beings. That seems to be counterintuitive to the whole process of birur. That's the question the Rebbe is asking. Says the Rebbe, however, in a yesh basic birurim, there are two modes, two manner of refinement. There is there is a manner of refinement from below to above, which is a refinement which is little by little, step by step. This is the refinement that takes place through man's work, through man's service of Hashem. Then there is there is a manner of refinement that takes place from above to below. Through drawing down such a high, a lofty divine energy, a lofty divine light, which is totally immeasurable relative to the created beings. What happens through this mode of refinement? Unlike the refinement that is milmata lamayla, from below to above, through the created being's effort, which is la'at la'at slowly, this manner of refinement from a power that comes from above, which is completely beyond measure and relation to created beings, through this type of refinement, stellt sich iber. These are 3 words in Yiddish. The nivra, bebas achas, the created being is transported in one moment from one state to a completely different state. It's instantaneous. Vehu habiru de Torah. This is the refinement that takes place through Torah, where the created being is transported from one condition to a completely different condition in one go. So in other words, the birur of Torah, the refinement that takes place through the Torah, doesn't come to negate or to exclude the birur, the refinement that needs to be taking place through Avodas Adam, through man's service of Hashem, right? Through our own effort. It's just that it represents a different type of birur. In other words, in the process of refinement, there are 2, and Torah represents one of them, which is Mamayla Lamata. The main characteristic being that it transports the created being from one state to another state instantaneously. And that comes as a result of a power which is completely beyond measure and relation and association with the created being in his own right. Now the Rebbe explains an interesting Mishnah. This is also the deeper meaning of that which our sages say in the Talmud and Ksubis. Over there, the Talmud discusses Keitzad merakdim lifnei hakala. How does one dance before the bride? What does that mean? What does one recite whilst dancing before the bride? Very topical for Lawrence. So there's a machlokes, there's a difference of opinion between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai say...
Merakdim is dance, no?
Yes, but it means... Because that's what it means. Because it says, if you look at the answer, Beis Shammai says, Kala kameis shehi. Beis Hillel Kala no v'chasuda. Beis Shammai says, the bride as she is, meaning to say, you look at the bride and you emphasize her good qualities. Nobody is devoid of good qualities, right? And nobody is devoid of not such desirable qualities. So when you look at the Kala, you emphasize, you focus on her good qualities, and you sort of ignore the unappealing aspects, if they exist. Beis Hillel says that one recites a fair and attractive bride. Noah v'chasuda. Despite the fact that she might not be so fair and so attractive, you say Kala Noah v'chasuda. Blanket statement in relation to all brides. Right? What does it mean in the deeper sense? So the Rebbe explains, Kala, who's the bride? He Knesset Yisrael. That's the assembly of Israel, meaning the Jewish people. V'keitzad merakdim lifnei hakala. How do we dance before the Kala? What do we recite before the Kala, before Knesset Yisrael? In fact, when we say the expression Knesset Yisrael in Chassidus, it refers to the source of the souls of Yidden, which is Kabbalistically related to Malchus of Atzilus. Okay, but it's Yisrael at a higher level, right? Knesset Yisrael. Yidden. So what does that? So if the kala is Knesset Yisrael, so what's Keitzad Merakdim Lifnei HaKala? The interpretation of that is, how do we? This is the drawing down of Simcha, joy, in Knesset Yisrael, in Yidden, the level of Simcha in Knesset Yisrael. Now, so what's the difference of opinion? In Bishamai Emrim Kala Kamesh Shehi. Bishamai says you refer to the bride as she is, meaning to say you don't deny the imperfections, but you focus on the good elements, right? But the undesirable aspects are also taken into account. Why does Beis Shammai take this opinion? Ki Shammai hu meloshen shamoi. Shammai is from the expression of an evaluator, somebody that values. Sheshoikel, shatzt up, he weighs, he evaluates. Kol davar echomaho, everything he evaluates. How is it and what is it? In other words, doesn't miss out any of the positive or negative aspects. That's why Beis Shammai are the ones that say kala kamei shehi, that the kala is as she is. In other words, you don't deny any of the aspects of the kala, including the negative ones. What does it mean in the deeper sense? That in accordance to the level and the measure, the capacity of the kala, of the kala's condition, as she is, it should be drawn down to him, or to the kala, in the condition that the kala is. So in other words, what are we talking about? Shehu Shezehu abir b'derech mamayla lamata. The Shammai is referring to a refinement which takes place from above to below, the bestowal of a godly energy from above to below. This, to use the Rebbe's terminology, to draw down the simcha in Knesset Yisrael, the level of simcha, which I guess is the idea of bina, into Knesset Yisrael. How? Milmayla lamata from milmata lamayla, from below to above. Hang on, let me just finish the words, then we'll get back. We'll go back. Well, Beis Hillel say, Kala noa v'chasuda, that the kala is beautiful and attractive, fair and attractive. Why does Hillel see only the good qualities, irrespective of the negative aspects that might exist? Ki Hillel l'moloshen behilei neirei. There's a verse in Job, in Iyov, that says, behilei neirei al reishi. I would also walk in the darkness. Behilei, when he lit the candle on my head, that allowed me to walk in the darkness, and when Hashem lit the candle on my head, I was able to walk through all types of dark situations. That's what Iyov says. Behilei, so Behilei, the root of Behilei is Hey Lamed, Hil, right? So Hillel is from the expression of Gilui, revelation. If you look in the Mefarshim, the Metzudas David, the Metzudas Tzion, they all talk about Behilei in fact in the vein of illumination. So Hillel and Behilei are from the same root. So Hillel could be interpreted as what? As revelation, illumination. In other words, Hillel emphasizes the revelation from above to below. That's why he says that the kala is fair and beautiful and attractive. We do not reckon at all with one's situation and condition. Meaning to say, even if, as the Talmud says later on, there was a discussion between let me just read you the whole Talmud. He says, so this is the dispute between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. So Beis Shammai said to Beis Hillel, in the case where the bride was lame or blind, does one say with regard to a fair and attractive bride? How can you say so? The Torah states, keep you from a false matter. How can you say it to a bride that's lame or blind? So Beis Hillel said to Beis Shammai, according to your statement with regard to one who acquired an inferior acquisition from the market, I purchased something which is inferior. Should another praise it and enhance its value in his eyes, or condemn it and diminish its value in his eyes? Somebody bought something, and you think that it's not a great purchase. Don't go and put it down. Praise it. Don't make him feel bad. You must say that he should praise it and enhance its value in his eyes. and refrain from causing him anguish. Right? So this is the dispute between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. But the Rebbe refers to a situation of lame or blind because that was the question the Beis Shammai posed to Beis Hillel. In the case where a bride is lame or blind, can you also say Kala Nova Chasuda? She's fair and attractive. So Beis Hillel says yes, because even in a situation like that, spiritually, if one is spiritually lame or blind, through the revelation of the divine light from above to below, another couple of words in Yiddish, the Kala, the bride, is taken out of the situation of lame or blind, and actually becomes a fair and attractive bride. Because the word chasuda is shem hanifal. It's a passive expression. It's a passive term. Meaning to say, the idea of a passive expression is that there is something outside of it that causes it to be that way. So when you say that the kala is chasuda, right, attractive, but chasuda is passive, shem hanifal, meaning to say something causes it to be chasuda. It might not be chasuda in its own right, but what causes it to be chasuda? That revelation from above that is bestowed onto the kala. I'll get back to that. I'll come back to the discussion in a second. This is the mode of refinement that takes place through Torah. Through drawing down a divine energy which is beyond measure, beyond relation to the created being. What takes place, the type of refinement that takes place in the physical is completely beyond the measure of the created being in its own right. Basically, what the Rebbe is saying here is this. There are two types of birurim, two types of refinement, both of which, in fact, are necessary in the process of fulfilling the purpose of creation. The purpose of creation is to make this world a dwelling place for Hashem, to bring godliness into this low world, which is in its own right dark, devoid, at least on the surface, of godliness. That is a dual process, through man's effort and also through something which is bestowed upon us from above. Insofar as man's effort is concerned, because a created being is limited, a created being can only achieve that which a created being can achieve. A created being in his own right can't go beyond his own capacity. In order to go beyond one's own capacity, we need a power which is limitless, which is not bound by the normal restrictions and confines of creation. Right? That's a power from above. So in the birurim, to use the terminology of the Rebbe, there's a birur b'derech milmata l'mayla, from below to above, which means through man's effort, and there's a birur b'derech milmayla l'mata, a refinement which takes place from above to below, meaning through a power which is vested into the created beings from above, something which comes outside of it, which the created being doesn't have in its own right. Torah, Matan Torah, at Matan Torah, what was given to us is that power from above, which is completely beyond our own capacity and our own right as created beings, in our natural condition. Right? What is the difference between these two modes of refinement? In the refinement of man's effort, the refinement is bit by bit, slowly. You can't run before you know how to walk, right? You can't make that leap. But when we have the bitter from above, because it's so powerful, it has the ability to transport the created being from one condition to another condition instantaneously. The former is called milmata l'mayla, the latter is called milmayla l'mata. The former is called from below to above, the latter is called from above to below. The Rebbe then introduces the famous discussion in the Talmud about Ketzad Meraklim Lifnei HaKala and the two opinions of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, explaining that each one is focusing in the deeper sense on the different aspect of refinement. That they're actually talking about the idea that we are discussing in the Maimon. Kala is Knesset Yisrael, Kala is the Yidden. Ketzad Meraklim Lifnei HaKala. What do we recite whilst we dance before the Kala, is the idea of drawing down joy. Just like by a wedding, you draw joy into the celebrations. So too, we're talking about drawing down joy into the souls of Yidden, right? How does that take place? So there's a difference of opinion between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says, Kala Kamoshi, you have to recite praises to the Kala, to the bride, by emphasizing the bride's positive aspects, even though she might possess negative aspects. Beis Hillel says no, you tell the Kala that she's fair and attractive, irrespective of whether that's the case or not. What's the difference between one and the other? Beis Shammai focuses on the Kala and says, hang on a second, I got to evaluate what's before me. If there are aspects of the Kala that are unattractive, I can't say that it is attractive. I have to find something to praise her with, something real, something genuine. Where Beis Hillel says, no, you don't need to. You could say Kala Novach, so that the Kala is fair and attractive, right? What does that mean? It says that Beis Shammai focuses on the Kala, meaning to say, on the created being as he is. What can the Kala accomplish? How does the Kala appear in her own right? In other words, we're talking about a Nivra, to use that as, go back to the discussion of the Rebbe, the Kala would be the created being. What has the Kala achieved? What condition is the Nivra in his own right? The created being in his own right. In other words, we're talking about Milmata Lamayla, the perspective from the Nivra, from the created being, insofar as the created being is concerned, relative to what he accomplished and what he was able to accomplish. Beis Hillel says no. We are not focusing on the created being as he is. We say that the Kala is fair and attractive. What does that mean? It means to say we're focusing on the perspective from above. So from the perspective of above, it doesn't really matter what limitations, what imperfections the created being has. Because we're talking about a bestowal of a divine energy from above, which has the ability to transport the created being from one condition to another condition instantaneously, irrespective of the limitations and the imperfections that the created being has in its own right. So this is the idea of the birur of Torah, the refinement which takes place through Torah, through the giving of the Torah. What did Hashem introduce into Torah, at Matan Torah, at the giving of the Torah? This aspect of Torah, which is completely beyond the limitations and the capacity of the created being in his own right, which has the ability to affect birur, to affect refinement instantaneously from one condition to another condition, and not to be bound by the confines and limitations of the created being.